Tubbs quits the force and sinks into corruption on today's Miami Vice. Red Tape was directed by Gabrielle Beaumont and was written by Jonathan Polanski from a story idea by Dennis Cooper, and it features a young and smoking hot Lou Diamond Phillips wearing tight pants, which makes this episode worthwhile right there. Crockett and Tubbs team up with two young hotshot detectives, Bobby Diaz and Eddie Trumbull, to arrest a thief who might be a witness to the murder of a drug lord. While Best Adventures by Think Man plays, they enter the thief's apartment and walk right into a trap. A bomb explodes, injuring Diaz and killing Trumbull. Trumbull, by the way, gets just a few precious seconds of screen time before his violent exit, but he's played by Aragorn, son of Arathorn, wielder of the sword that was broken and forged again, or as he's also known, three-time Oscar nominee Viggo Mortensen. Bobby Diaz, who will have a considerably bigger and meatier role in this episode, is played by enduring heartthrob Lou Diamond Phillips, who would catapult to fame 4 months after this episode aired by playing Richie Valens in La Bamba, before going on to star in the Young Guns films, as well as appearing opposite Miami Vice's Edward James Olmos in Stand and Deliver. Tubbs is particularly enraged by this attack. Several cops have been recently killed in a string of unrelated attacks, suggesting the department has a leak while someone with access to a Justice Department computer has clearly been leaking information found on police search warrants. Highly agitated, Tubbs begins yelling about how it's too dangerous for police officers to work under these conditions and how the Miami PD isn't doing enough to protect its officers. He makes such a fuss that Castillo threatens to suspend him, but Tubbs quits in a fiery huff. Tubbs throws another fit when he discovers he can't withdraw his money from the police credit union and smashes a display case. He gets arrested for assault. Intrigued by all this out-of-character misbehavior, Special Investigations Detective Glenn McIntyre, played by Scott Plank, asks his girlfriend Vicky, who works at the Justice Department, to pull Tubbs's file for him. In this episode's second example of a future A-list Hollywood star tucked away in a minor role, Vicky is played by 4-time Oscar nominee Annette Benning. Crockett meets with an arrested Tubbs, and Tubbs insists that Crockett isn't his partner anymore. He announces that he just wants to move back to New York and he's willing to do illegal and reckless things to earn money. All of us watching at home by this point are thinking one of two things. Either we're thinking, wow, Tubbs is really written poorly and in a wildly out-of-character manner this episode, or more likely we're thinking, aha, Tubbs is working undercover to find the leak. At night, Switek runs into Tubbs at Vice headquarters. Switek is very kind and sympathetic, pointing out that he just wanted to quit the force after Zito's murder, but Tubbs is an unpleasant jerk to him. An unexpected upshot to Zito's departure from the show was how it gave Switek a chance to breathe as his own character instead of just as half of a match set. This is a nice scene for him. While Money Talks by the Alan Parsons Project plays, Tubbs goes to a neon-lit bar to drink fancy cocktails and try to borrow money from loan sharks. McIntyre shows up and tries to interest Tubbs in a business proposition. He'll pay hard cash in exchange for Vice's files on a drug lord named Avila. Later, McIntyre swills champagne with Vicky and discusses how they're going to get rich selling her Justice Department information and Tubbs's files to criminals. In light of all the recent cop deaths, Vicky has some moral qualms about this, as well she should. But McIntyre reassures her that they're doing the right thing. Bobby Diaz, who is deeply mired in grief and anger over his partner's murder, stumbles across Tubbs lurking in the file room. Diaz is suspicious of Tubbs's behavior, Tubbs picks a fight with him and storms off, and Diaz notices that Tubbs has stolen the files on Avila. Tubbs delivers the files to McIntyre and tips him off about an upcoming Vice raid on Avila's warehouse. Crockett, who is partnered with a DEA agent named Ayers in Tubbs's absence, leads the raid on the warehouse, which is booby-trapped with a shotgun rigged to the door, and Ayers is shot in the chest. An ambulance arrives and whisks off Ayers, who turns out to be completely uninjured, and the paramedics turn out to be Gina and Trudy, because, of course, Tubbs's actions have all been part of an elaborate Vice scheme to catch the leak. At the Justice Department, Vicky sees that an arrest warrant has been issued for McIntyre, so she tips off her boyfriend, thus blowing Tubbs's cover. As Closer to Heaven by the Alan Parsons Project plays, McIntyre and Avila take Tubbs onto a boat to kill him. Diaz, who has been secretly following Tubbs, calls Crockett to tell him he's planning on killing McIntyre and Tubbs, whom he thinks is a dirty cop. As Crockett races to the scene, Diaz ambushes Tubbs, McIntyre, and Avila. Diaz is shot, Avila is arrested, and McIntyre, realizing he's trapped, kills himself. Tubbs cradles a badly injured Diaz. Diaz snarls at him to get his dirty hands off of him, then dies. Castillo gives Tubbs his badge back, and Tubbs, who tells Crockett how awful he feels that Diaz died thinking he was corrupt, tucks it in with Diaz's corpse. I like this episode. It's probably one of my favorites of season 3, but I always feel vaguely insulted that it expected us to believe for a big chunk of this episode that Tubbs would willingly endanger his fellow officers in exchange for money. In this case, trying to trick viewers into thinking Tubbs has gone over to the dark side doesn't work at all, just because we know Tubbs very well by this point, and we see him acting in a way that makes no sense based on everything we know about him, so we know from very early on that either the writers have messed up or the series is making a pretty blatant attempt to fool viewers. It's a shame Miami Vice took that approach because this episode has many strengths. Good performances across the board. Bobby Diaz, the hotshot young cop, is a great character, and Lou Diamond Phillips plays him with a lot of energy and fiery drive. That second Alan Parsons Project tune, Closer to Heaven, which is a soft, gentle, romantic song, works unexpectedly well juxtaposed with an action-packed and violent climax. So despite my small issues with how this story is told, I'm giving it 4 flamingos. Next time, Don Johnson is reunited with his once and future wife, Melanie Griffith, who plays a high-powered madam. I'm a sucker for Don and Melanie as an iconic 1980s power couple, so I'm looking forward to that one. Join me then, and have a delightful week.